Hi everyone. This video will learn about this Pndt Act, which means Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act. Okay. So now this is a law which is given by the Indian government, and they have revised this law and made some changes, and this law is emerged and updated as PCPNDT Act. Okay, which means Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act. Okay. So to introduce about this act, um, so in India we have made a remarkable progress in medical technologies, especially in the field of prenatal diagnostic techniques, okay, such as at ultrasonography, okay, which while these techniques are meant for early detection of fetal abnormalities, okay, the misuse of this act for sex determination led to a serious social problem, that is female feticide. Okay, they will kill the female child even in the utero itself. Okay, to prevent this misuse and to protect the girl child, the government of India enacted the Pndt Act, which later became the PCPNDT Act. This act is a socially relevant and ethically essential law, and healthcare professionals play a crucial role in its implementation. So to explain this act, think of this medical technology as a knife. Okay, think of this PNDT as a knife. In the hands of a surgeon, it saves life. In the hands of a criminal, it causes harm. Similarly, prenatal diagnostic tools can save unborn babies when used correctly. But when misused for sex selection, they destroy lives. So the PNDT act as a protective sheath, okay, ensuring the knife is used only for healing, not for harming. Okay. Myself, Ruth Kezia, lecturer in MMM College of Nursing. We'll see about the introduction advantages of this act to this mother, child, family, and society, medical procedures and technologies, historical context, provisions, prohibited practices, registration, monitoring, penalties and enforcement, changes in implementation, current challenges, and multi-pronged approach regarding this PNDT Act. Introduction. Preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques, okay, PCPNDT Act in 1994 is an Indian legislation enacted to curb female feticide and address the declining sex ratio. It prohibits sex selection before or after conception and regulates diagnostic techniques for identifying genetic disorders. Advantages. To the mother, it reduces coercion, enhances bodily autonomy and dignity, and focus on health. The act helps to protect pregnant women from family or societal pressure to undergo sex determination test and sex selective abortion, which often stem from deep-rooted patriarchal attitudes. And by making sex determination illegal, the act reinforces a woman's right to life and personal liberty, ensuring her reproductive choices are not dictated by the gender bias. And prenatal diagnostic techniques are restricted to detecting genetic abnormalities, metabolic disorder, and other medical conditions. Ensuring the mother's health and healthy development of the fetus are the primary focus of medical care, not the sex of the child. To the female child, how this act um, is giving advantage. It means it gives right to life, it protects the child from discrimination, and gives improved survival prospects for the female child. The most critical advantage is the protection of the female fetus from the fundamental right to life as enshrined in Article 21 of the Indian Constitution by deterring female feticide. It works to combat the systematic gender discrimination that devalues the girl child from conception onwards. By arresting the practice of sex selective abortion, the Act helps ensure that female children have the chance to be born and develop fully regardless of their gender. To the family, what are the advantages regarding this PNDT Act? Challenging patriarchal norms, promoting harmony, gender based families. So this legislation acts as a legal tool to challenge the preference for male child and encouraging families to value children of both sexes equally. By working towards gender balance, it can alleviate the pressure on families to keep having children until a son is born, potentially leading to smaller and more stable family units. The long-term goal is to foster a cultural shifts where a balanced family composition is naturally accepted, reducing internal family conflict related to gender preference. To the society, what are the advantages? Improved sex ratio, gender equality, ethical medical practice, and prevention of social problems. The Act is a key intervention to address and correct the alarming declining in the female to male sex ratio in India, which has shown positive improvement in the recent years. Gender equality, it promotes a more egalitarian society by raising awareness and establishing a legal framework against gender discrimination and violence. Ethical medical practice, it mandates ethical standards in medical community by regulating genetic clinics and diagnostic centers and punishing the misuse of advanced technology for non-medical purposes like sex determination. And prevention of social problems, a balanced sex ratio helps prevent future social problems such as shortage of brides, which can lead to increased trafficking and violence against women. Medical procedures and technologies. Prenatal diagnostic techniques are medical procedures used to detect genetic abnormalities, congenital malformations, and chromosomal disorders in the fetus. So these include ultrasound imaging and sonography, amniocentesis for genetic testing, chorionic villus sampling, non-invasive prenatal testing. While designed for legitimate medical purposes, these technologies were being misused for sex determination, leading to widespread female feticide. Historical context, the crisis of the declining female sex ratio. In pre-1980s, India maintained relatively balanced sex ratio with the traditional social structures, though some preference existed culturally. In 1980s to 1990s, the introduction of ultrasound technology led to alarming decline in the child sex ratio from 962 to 927 girls per thousand boys. For 1000 boys, there will be only around 900 girls. In 1994, government enacted Pndt Act in response to this crisis, recognizing sex selection abortion as a serious national concern. In 2001 to 11, despite legislation, child sex ratio continued to decline to historic low of 918 girls per thousand boys by 2011 concerns. Key provision of the Pndt Act. So here the Act establishes a comprehensive regulatory framework to prevent misuse of diagnostic technologies. So what are the key provisions here? There should be mandatory registration, record maintenance, communication ban, and code of conduct. In mandatory registration, all diagnostic centers, genetic counseling centers, and laboratories must register with appropriate authorities. Record maintenance, strict documentation requirements for all procedures, including patient details and scan results. And communication ban, prohibition on communicating the sex of the fetus to pregnant women or their relatives. Code of conduct, ethical guidelines for medical practitioners conducting prenatal diagnostic procedures. Prohibited practices, what the Act prohibits. So the Act prohibits sex determination, sex selection, advertisement, and unregistered operations. Conducting or assisting in any prenatal diagnostic techniques for sex determination is prohibited. Preconception techniques for selection of the sex of the child before conception, except for preventing genetic disorders, is prohibited. And advertising sex determination services or facilities through any medium, including digital platforms, are prohibited. And unregistered operating diagnostic centers or conducting procedures without proper registration and authorization is prohibited. Registration and monitoring. Here, the Central Supervisory Board, State Supervisory Boards, appropriate authorities, and advisory committees are these monitoring bodies, and they ensure compliance. Okay, and apex body formulating Central Supervisory Board is the apex body formulating policies and overseeing implementation at the national level, headed by Union Health Minister, and state level authorities monitor complaints, conducting inspection and taking enforcement actions within their jurisdiction. Appropriate district level of officers responsible for registration, inspection and suspension or cancellation of certificates for violation. And advisory committees, they have expert panels providing technical guidance on medical procedures and advancing and advising on policy improvements. So what are the penalties and enforcement? In For a medical practitioners, for the first offence, imprisonment up to 3 years and fine up to rupees 10,000. Subsequent offence, imprisonment up to 5 years and fine up to 1 lakh. Permanent suspension of medical registration. And diagnostic centers, what are the penalties? So penalties will be registration cancelling, sealing of the premises, confiscation of equipment, and financial fine up to 5 lakh for unregistered operation, and criminal prosecution of the owners and operators. For advertisers and intermediaries, for the first offence there will be imprisonment up to 3 years and fine up to 10,000. And media houses liable for publishing advertisements and related to sex determination, action against digital platforms hosting prohibited content. So the Act treats violation as cognizable, non-bailable offences, demonstrating severity with which the law views sex selective practices and emphasizing zero tolerance for gender discrimination. So changes since the implementation, what are the changes regarding this boys and girls ratio? Girls, current ratio is 933 girls per boys in 2021, shows improvement from 2011 where the ratio is only about 918 per thousand boys. And registered centers, there are about 4,800 plus registered centers, diagnostic facilities operating under regulation nationwide, and 2,000 plus prosecutions has been carried out, okay, enforcing this law. Current challenges. So we have challenges in implementing this Pndt Act. What are the challenges? Technological evolution, implementation gaps, social attitudes, and cross-border issues. Under technological evolution, portable ultrasound devices and home-based testing kits circumvent regulatory oversight, and online platforms facilitate illegal services, making detection and enforcement increasingly difficult. Implementation gaps, inadequate staffing of the appropriate authorities, delayed prosecutions and weak conviction rate undermine this deterrent effect, and many states lacked adequate monitoring infrastructure. Social attitudes, this deep-rooted son preference persists due to dowry practices, patriarchal norms, and economic considerations. The cultural change lags behind legal frameworks, and limiting the act's effectiveness. So as a legal framework changes, cultural practice also should change. Okay, but we don't easily change our cultural practices. But improving only the legal law will not give any effective implementation. Okay, so that is the challenge we face in the social attitudes. And cross-border issues, pregnant women traveling to neighbor states or countries with lax enforcement for sex determination procedures, interstate coordination remains a significant challenge. So in order to find out their fetus sex, they will travel to other countries where this Pndt Act is not into practice, and they will find out the sex and they will try to kill. Okay, this is also a challenge faced. A way forward, a multi-pronged approach. We have to strengthen the technology, implement digital tracking systems, regulate online platforms, use AI for monitoring violations, and enhance enforcement, fast track courts for PNDT cases, increase conviction rates, and ensure swift punishment. Social transformation, mass awareness campaign should be conducted, education programs and incentives for the families with the daughters should be given, and women's empowerment should be implemented. Economic independence, education access, and challenging patriarchal structure should be given. Okay, so gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. It was said by Mr. Kofi Annan. So thank you all. I hope you gained some idea regarding this PNDT Act.